That's just
But it's 30.
when are we going to start? At 0? All right, we'll work with it.
Well, good Monday evening, afternoon, depending upon where you are in the city and how you're feeling, I guess. Welcome to From the Halls of Justice. And today we have with us the distinguished Commissioner Stephen M. Lowry, and he's with the Los Angeles Superior Courts. It's so exciting to have him here. His story before he became a commissioner is really exciting. We also have with us the fabulous and shark attorney Ron Litz. Shark with a heart, though. I mean, and he's going to help me interview the commissioner. I believe this is going to be a fabulous show. Ron is a pro. He's been with us before. So that's why I enlisted his services to help me with the commissioner. So we're going to start off from the halls of justice. And my first question for you, Commissioner Lowry, is what do Los Angeles Superior Court judges and Los Angeles Superior Court commissioners have in common?
Well, they have several things in common. First is that they each have to have been a lawyer for at least 10 years before they could go onto the bench.
Mm-hmm.
So both commissioners and judges have to have 10 years of experience.
Great.
Second, they both decide cases in the Los Angeles Superior Court in the same court buildings, not in the same courtrooms, but in the same court buildings.
Mm-hmm.
They are licensed California attorneys. That's a sine qua non that they have to have.
Mm-hmm.
And they wear black robes when they're making their rulings, required, believe it or not.
All right.
And they're both sworn to uphold the Constitution, both of the United States and of the state of California.
Now, what do the judges and the Los Angeles Superior Court commissioners not have in common?
Well, the first thing is that commissioners are not appointed by the governor. Judges are either appointed by the governor, or if there is an empty seat when an election comes up, judges can nominate themselves, put their name in for a seat, and run for that seat. Commissioners are elected by the collective body of judges in the particular county. So all of the judges in Los Angeles County get to vote on the commissioners and for their elevation to the bench. Additionally, they don't get paid the same. Judges make more money than commissioners do, and commissioners don't feel bad about that. It's just that that's the way it is. Additionally, it's the case that for commissioners to hear any cases, any case that's posed, they have to be stipulated to by the parties. The parties have to agree that the commissioner can hear the case. Otherwise, commissioners cannot hear the case. They don't have jurisdiction over it.
Wow. That's interesting.
Not so for judges. Judges, when they take the bench, they have the jurisdiction to go ahead and hear the matter.
Unless they get challenged.
Unless they get challenged. And commissioners can get challenged as well.
So, since you brought up the earning, women all around the United States want to know this. So, how much more do judges earn annually than the commissioners?
15%.
15%.
But women judges and women commissioners are paid the same.
Okay.
There is no discrimination on the pay scale between the people who are judges and the people who are commissioners.
For women?
Yes.
Really?
It's been that way for a long time.
But the men, now this is going to be a totally different show like this, but the men judges earn 15% more?
No, not more than the women.
No,
more than the commissioners.
Yes.
Right.
But women judges and women commissioners earn the same?
No. I misspoke if I said that.
Okay, there we
Women
go.
judges make the same as male judges.
Okay, thank
Women
you.
commissioners make the same as male commissioners.
Okay, all right, that's
So
fine.
in the categories, they make exactly the same.
All right, because for a minute I thought we were going somewhere else.
We're not going to do any Me Too in here.
We're good. Yvette heard that? We're good. Okay. Now,
My turn.
yes.
What are AB 1058 commissioners?
They're a special category of commissioner. There are 4 of them in the Los Angeles Superior Court, and they are a part of a federal program designed to make sure that child support works well. The feds came in and passed an act out of the Title IV, which is where the Social Security Act is found in the United States Code, passed an act which sets up money for states throughout the nation for child support. And in California, to enact that and to put it into operation, a bill called Assembly Bill 1058 was passed, and it lays out the program in Los Angeles Superior Court. Each Superior Court in the state has its own program, so AB 1058 applies only in Los Angeles County. And in Los Angeles County, there are just 4 AB 1058 commissioners. They all sit in what is called the Commonwealth Court. That's a court in the building, real nice building on 6th and Lafayette, right there next to the park.
Okay. And how are they selected?
They're selected by the presiding judge of the Family Law Division. He has people that are assigned to him by the court as commissioners, and he makes a decision as to where they should be seated. And when there's an opening there, he will contact one of the people that has been assigned to become a commissioner and convince that person to become a 1058 commissioner.
And you said that there are 4 of those, but how
Right.
many commissioners are there altogether in the LA Superior Court?
It's varied over time, but right now it's about 81 or 82, I believe, at the latest count.
All right. How many judges are there in the Los Angeles Superior Court?
A good bit more, 483, I think, right now at present.
Really?
And I think there's still some seats that are vacant that Governor Brown has not filled and that have not been yet elected to, had a judge elected to them. Next election for judges will be in June,
In
in
June.
the primary.
Yeah, right now I believe Van Nuys has an empty one in Department 11.
That's very possible.
Yeah.
There's quite a few that are open.
Okay. Now, how does the Los Angeles Superior Court rank in terms of size among the courts in the United States of America?
This is one we're very proud of. We are the largest court in the United States. We have more bench officers, commissioners, and judges combined than any other state court and any other federal court in the United States. And it's possible that we are the largest single court in anywhere in the world. No country may have more judges and lower bench officers than does the LA Superior Court. It's a big operation.
Awesome.
So you're looking at somewhere around 560 bench officers.
Wow. Beautiful.
Now, I have a tidbit for you of it's an attack on our country. President Donald Trump's immediate reaction to search warrants served and searches conducted on M. Cohen's home, office, and hotel room on April 9th of this month.
Now that's a new one. That was the situation in which the Mr. Mueller decided that he would seek possible search warrants against Mr. Cohen, who is President Trump's personal lawyer. He went in and decided after he got into court that it was better that he not have the jurisdiction over the matters, but that the Southern District of New York should actually pursue the matter, because Mr. Cohen is licensed in New York, and the activities that had been looked at by Mr. Mueller's office all took place in New York. And so the U.S. Attorney for the Southern District of New York sent his people in late last week, very late last week, well, late week before last, to obtain some search warrants. And then on Monday of last week, that's a week ago today, they went to Mr. Cohen's home, to his office, and to a hotel room, which he is living in temporarily while some work's being done on his home. They served the search warrants, and they went in and gathered up materials pursuant to the search warrants. The president, unfortunately, doesn't have a good grasp of the judicial system or how search warrants work, and so he overreacted, you might say, by coming out with that statement. And that was that it's an attack on our country. Of course, it was not an attack on our country. It was a standard search warrant, many of which are issued and enforced every day, but he still believes that it is part of a conspiracy against him and against his lawyer. There was a big hearing this morning in New York on the matter before Judge Kimber Wood and Mr. Cohen and Mr. Trump were asking to have the documents given back to them so that they could review them all before they were looked at by either the prosecutors from the Southern District or anyone else. The judge is taking it under advisement, but her comments from the bench reportedly are to the effect that she's not going to do that.
Shouldn't there be copies of these documents?
Well, these are documents that, remember now, the term documents doesn't just refer to something like what we're holding in our hands here.
Okay.
Documents can also be such things as tapes. They can be such things as other kinds of recordings. And Mr. Cohen and the FBI found that when they went to his house and to his office and to the hotel room, that he has been, over the last few years, recording a large number of the conversations that he has with people, possibly with his clients and with other people. And so they apparently scooped up some of those things as well, and there may not be any copies of those, and there may not be any copies of notes that he may have made either. So,
I'm just thinking that if I was that rich, if I'm going to bother to tape you, I want some backup. I want some copies.
well, the problem with that is that once you make copies or you have someone make copies, other people know about it.
What about if you make the copy?
As an attorney,
Yes.
well, the problem for Mr. Cohen is that he doesn't seem to do many things that many attorneys do. He seems to be more concerned with talking with people about resolving problems that his client has. So they call him the fixer, and he doesn't seem to probably. I doubt that he may know how to use a copy machine. And making copies of tapes and making copies of thumb drives is not necessarily an easy thing for all lawyers to do. So anyway, there don't appear to be copies, although the FBI, once they get approval to go forward with the documents, will probably make several copies.
Or they might have been listening to him. Let's
They
see.
could well have been listening to him.
Another miscellaneous tidbit. Few people can be happy unless they hate some other person, nation, or creed. Bertrand Russell. What do you like about that?
Well, I like that because it's got a great ring of truth to it. And we've seen an example of it even in this present president in his first year in office. He seems unable to really be joyful or to have a great sense of accomplishment unless he has exactly that. A hatred for, or certainly a disdain or some kind of enmity toward other people, nations, or what else do we say there? Countries
Or creed?
or creeds.
Person's
Yeah.
creed? Yeah, he's busy. Let's see. Another
So if the shoe fits, we say.
Okay, all right. Human aggression is instinctual. Humans have not evolved any ritualized aggression inhibiting mechanisms to ensure the survival of the species. For this reason, man is considered a very dangerous animal.
This, of
Conrad
course,
Lorenz.
yeah, this, of course, from Conrad Lorenz's book, one of the best books written about probably 40 years ago now, but on the nature of humankind, and most particularly on the fact that we have that in our background.
We, mankind, came to rule the earth not because we were the smartest or even the meanest, but because we have always been the craziest, most murderous MFers in the jungle. Stephen King in Cell. What do you like about that?
I like that. It's from one of my favorite authors. I dearly love Stephen King, and just about every book that he puts out, I enjoy more than the one before, and I think that he has a very good grasp of the way mankind is, unfortunately. And we've proven it over and over again that we are indeed the most murderous MFers in the jungle.
Well, how about this statement from Reverend Sloan Coffin? Remember this, even if you win the rat race, you are still a rat.
Sloan Coffin's a very interesting man. Back in the 60s, when I was in college, he was a very, very, very vigorous Vietnam anti-war person. He was the chaplain at Yale University at that time, and this is one of his statements that I particularly love. So I threw it in because I thought people would enjoy it. Even if you win the rat race, you are still a rat.
And the pastor's daughter said, amen.
She did indeed.
All right, this is America. People do whatever the F they feel like doing. You got a problem with that? Because they have a right to. And because they have guns and no one can stop them.
Effing stop them.
Effing stop. ING is missing. Okay, effing stop them. Neil Stephenson and Snow Crash. What do we like about this?
This is a book written by an author. Neil Stephenson is one of my favorite authors. And I heartily recommend it to everyone. It's a little dated now. It's probably, I guess I read that while I was starting law school, so it's quite dated. It's about 30 years old. But Stevenson has a marvelous capacity for commenting on humankind in a fictional way. And there, it gets right to the heart of where we are in terms of this crazed love of guns that we have in this country. A lot of people don't know it, but there are about, 220 million Americans right now, and there are about 350 to 400 million guns privately owned in America. Only 20% of all Americans own guns. So that means that out of about 40 million people, you have 340 million guns. So they are owning, each of them, at least 7 guns, maybe 8 guns apiece. So that most gun fanatics don't just go in for one, they like to have a complete arsenal. And this is an interesting statement, I think, that Mr. Stevenson stated, because we see it here in America. We have major efforts made, most recently by the children from the high school in Florida.
Correct.
Trying to get some kind of gun reform done. But again, every day that passes without something actually happening, you can be certain the farther away we are from ever any meaningful change. There's just too many guns, and they are too concentrated, and the people that have them want them, love them, and believe that they have a right to have a complete arsenal.
I was surprised to find out, I'm afraid of guns. Guns scare me to death. And my ex-husband had an opportunity to be a property manager at one point somewhere, up until he was in the running, until the interviewer asked a question, and he said, "What's your hobbies?" or something, and he made a statement that, "Oh, I have several guns," and they said, "Next," because
Well, good for the property owner. That's most unusual. I'm surprised that they didn't instead say, "Welcome aboard. We have a good safe, but if you have your own, you bring it."
Yeah, but I was surprised at the age that you're allowed to carry a firearm. I mean, I would
It depends on the state you're in, too.
Oh, see, I didn't think
It
about
goes
that.
from state to state. Florida now, just because of the movement by the young people, I think they've upped it to 21,
Yeah.
which is a reasonable restraint put on it.
I'm
But
still
there are-
thinking 30, 35.
But there are still states, Texas, Mississippi, probably a couple of states up by Idaho, Montana, where as young as 16 or 15 you can have a weapon if you've taken a gun training course. So they're everywhere.
And it's crazy, the weapons that you can have.
Yes.
Military weapons.
Military-sized and styled weapons, yes.
They should do a thorough background check on someone who would even want a military weapon.
Yes.
And it should take longer than just a month or two. I mean,
Well, 90% of all Americans favor strict gun control background checks, but the powers that be, and we're talking now, of course, about the wonderful gun lobby, they fight that harder than anything. They really, really don't want any real background checks.
And they have power.
They have a lot of power.
Well, I like this one. To laugh often and much, to win the respect of intelligent people and the affection of children, to earn the appreciation of honest critics and endure the betrayal of false friends, to appreciate beauty, to find the best in others, to leave the world a little better, whether by a healthy child, a garden patch, or a redeemed social condition, to know even one life has breathed easier because you have lived. This is the meaning of success. Ralph Waldo Emerson.
Wow.
Emerson, one of the great thinkers, I think, in the history of America. Close friend of Henry David Thoreau. And this is a kind of a statement that, for me, if it was first and foremost the belief of most Americans, think how well off we would be if people were striving to accomplish that end.
Now, I'm going to have to let Ron jump in, but I got to read this one. The first half of our lives are ruined by our parents. The second half by our children. I love that.
Yeah.
Clarence Darrow, that's wonderful.
Clarence Darrow, of course, one of the great litigators, trial lawyers in the history of American jurisprudence. You have to have had children and have to have seen them grow up before you know whether there's any truth in that or not. I would say that, probably a lot of parents may feel that way, not all, but a good number probably feel that way. And
We have our memories.
we do have our memories indeed.
Okay, here's one for you. All men love trickery and tricksters. That is why the half-starving peasants surrendered their hard-gotten wages from the mountebanks and gypsies come through their towns. All the world loves to be deceived, but only when it consents to the deception.
I've been trying, that's a statement from David Litz, an author in a book called The Coffee Trader. I've been trying to find for the last year and a half, because my early training was as a political scientist rather than as a lawyer. And I was a college professor and taught political science for about 8 years. I've been trying to find out and resolve in my own mind why it is that there are still some 25 to 30% of all adult Americans who vote who still believe and are hiding and not hiding, but holding on to a confidence and a faith in Donald Trump.
You taught at the school that he graduated?
No, I went to the same school that he went to, the University of Pennsylvania.
Okay.
I earned my PhD there.
Okay.
He was an undergraduate there. He did not attend the Wharton School to obtain an MBA. He doesn't have an MBA as far as I know.
Okay.
But at any rate, he was there at the same time I was, but I did not teach him. I was a teaching assistant at that time,
Okay.
but didn't have him in a class.
Okay.
But at any rate, I found this quote, and there's a lot of truth in this quote. And that is that, people like to be tricked and like to be taken advantage of, but only if they've consented to it. And so I think that one of the interesting things to ask people who still support the Trump and who will support him again, probably if he runs for re-election in 2020, is because he's theirs. They grabbed him, and he got their consent to make fools of them, and he has.
Okay, well, now we have a long one for you, but it's from Hermann Göring at the
yes.
Nuremberg trials.
Mr. Goring.
Of course, the people don't want war, but after all, it's the leaders of the country who determine the policy, and it's always a simple matter to drag the people along, whether it's a democracy, a fascist dictatorship, or a parliament, or a communistic dictatorship. Voice or no voice, the people can always be brought to the bidding of their leaders. That is easy. All you have to do is tell them they are being attacked, and denounced the pacifists for lack of patriotism and exposing the country to great danger.
That by Göring, who, of course, one of the Nazi leaders who was tried at Nuremberg, but he states it pretty much like it is. I mean, that's exactly how Hitler came to power, and it's exactly how many people throughout the world who are seeing lots of examples of this. We see this fellow Erdogan in Turkey. Of course, you've got the gentleman in Syria who's doing what he's doing to his people. You've got the gentleman in the Philippines. All of them operating on the same kind of theory, and all of them successful in getting the end that they want. And it's sad, but it's the case. And my concern is that we may be becoming more susceptible to such things than less. And that's a real concern that I have for the future.
Yes. And there's never, in my opinion, there's never been a worse person in the world than Hitler.
Absolutely.
Amen. Well, we've got 2 minutes, and with the 2 minutes, we've got some heavy-duty stuff going on. I think with the 2 minutes going,
Pick one more.
I like there's like 4.
Pick
Okay.
any more.
All right, here, my favorite here. And I'm going to pick this one because I love this. On the occasion of his 90th birthday, a newspaperman asked Supreme Court Justice Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr., "What is the secret of your success, Mr. Justice?" Justice Holmes replied, "Young man, the secret of my success is that at a very early age, I discovered that I am not God." Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr.
One of the most amazing Americans who ever lived was Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr. His father was a famous raconteur, storyteller, writer, who lived in Massachusetts, as did Oliver Wendell Holmes Jr. when he was being raised. When he was only 18, he signed up for service in the Civil War on the Union side and went to the first Battle of Bull Run with a group of soldiers that he'd helped raise, and his father had helped arm with both uniforms and with weapons. They went to the first Battle of Bull Run, and they were on the field about 10 minutes when almost all of them were killed. Holmes was shot badly, and the only reason he survived was that his father had gone to the battlefield. It was just outside Washington, D.C., and all kinds of people had gone out because they were sure the Union forces were going to slaughter the Confederates, and they just went out for picnics. His father was there in a surrey with 2 friends who happened to be physicians. They saved Holmes' life, got him back into D.C., got blood into him, and he recuperated. As soon as he had finished recuperating, he went back into battle, and the very same thing happened to him again. He was shot again, should have died. Again, his father had had the foresight to have people there, friends, and they saved his life once again. Holmes did one thing that very few people know, and that is that he saved Abraham Lincoln's life about 1 month before Abraham Lincoln was killed.
Oh my God.
Southerners came to Washington, D.C., and they had just about overrun the Capitol. Holmes was still recuperating. They brought all the guys out of the hospital. They put them up on the top of the half-finished Capitol building, and they gave them weapons to fight off the Confederates. Lincoln, who always had an interest in these kinds of things, came out, got up there among the soldiers on the top of the building with this huge stovepipe hat on, and the snipers for the South started taking shots at him. And all of a sudden, Holmes, realizing what happened, reached up and grabbed him by the coattails and yanked him down and said, "Get down, you damn fool." And Lincoln looked at him and is supposed to have said, "Thank you, sir." That's my favorite Holmes story.
That's
That's
great.
magnificent.
That's amazing.
Thank you for joining us on From the Halls of Justice. Tune in next week. Thank you. You are fascinating.
Okay,
You've got all this stuff in your head.
I got lots of stories.